Welcome to this EstimatorXpress Getting Started video. In this section we'll be estimating the suspended timber floor. Click on the Suspended Floor workbook and click Open Workbook. Click Add Worksheet to add a new worksheet to the workbook. Check the name and location, changing them if you need to. I'm going to change the location to Extension. Next, select a dimensional template. For my extension, I'm going to use the typical house floor template. Once you've clicked on a template, click Confirm. This will take you directly to the Dimensions wizard for the suspended floor. Here you can adjust the figures to suit your particular job. At the top we have the clear span of joists, or the length of the joists. It's currently set to 4.2 metres, but I'm going to change it to 2.2 metres. I'm going to be running the timbers the shortest distance I can. There's a 0.1 metre bearing at each end of the joists, which is fine, and there's a 2.4 metre spacing between the floor bracing. I'm going to reduce this to 1.2 metres. This is so I can run the plasterboard the other way. Move on to the next page by clicking Next. Type in the floor width here. I'm going to change it to 3.4 metres. Check the joist spacing here. By default it's set to 0.4 metres. Also check the joist strap centres. They're set at 2 metres. The number of end straps is set to 2, but you can set that to 0 or 1 if necessary. Move on to the next page. Here we have the perimeter of floor to be sealed. I'm going to change this to 11.2 metres. Here you can add trimmers to the estimate if they're needed because there's a staircase within the floor. You can enter the number and the length of 2 different types of trimmer. As there's no staircase within this extension, I can leave these boxes, along with the number of joist hangers set to 0. Click Next, and on page 4 you can enter some details about the joist ends. Here you can set the number of ends which are going to have joist hangers. I'm going to have joist hangers at one end. No additional joist hangers are required. And I'm going to have joist boots at one end. The default is to have joist hangers and joist boots at both ends, just in case you require them. Click Next. And on page 5 you have options to plaster and decorate the ceiling below. Tell EstimatorXpress whether you want the ceiling plastered, decorated and insulated. Finally, check the insulation overlap to the ceiling, which is set to 0.1 metres. Once you're happy with that, click Finish. In the Dimensions tab, you can check the dimensions in the column if you need to. Click on the Calculated Resources tab now. In here you can view the materials and labour which have been quantified and costed for the suspended timber floor. If you look down the screen, you'll see there's a material set to Not Required, Insulation to Floor Layer 2. Scrolling further down the screen, you'll see that there's a labour item also set to Not Required, Fit Floor Insulation Layer 2. This means you have the option to add an extra layer of insulation, but it's not necessary if you don't need it. You can simply leave these lines set to Not Required. The first layer of insulation by default runs between the joists. If you do want a second layer of insulation, click on the resource and click the Change Resource button to locate a suitable product. I'm going to use a 20mm insulation board which will be fitted between the bottom of the joists and the plasterboard. From the Type drop-down box, select Insulation. This will filter the price book so that you're looking at a smaller selection of resources. Scroll down the price book to locate the resource. Here I can see the polyiso boards I'm looking for. Click on the 20mm board and click Select Resource. You now need to check the usage factor and build phase for the material. Click the calculator icon to check the usage factor. Now I know from the area of the board that one polyiso board will cover 2.88 square metres of floor insulation. Once you've updated the usage factor, click OK, and we now have a more accurate usage factor for the insulation. The build phase is set to plastering, which is fine. Click OK. The 20mm polyiso board has now been added to the estimate. We can now add the labourer to fit the second layer of insulation. We can see that a general labourer has been used for the first layer of insulation. We use the same labourer for the second layer. Click on Fit Floor Insulation Layer 2 and click Change Resource again. Select the General Labourer. You can see he has a rate of £13 per hour, and click Select Resource. EstimatorXpress has given me a usage factor. If I click the calculator, I can see that it's allowing 1 hour to fit just over 9 square metres of floor insulation. Click OK, and OK again. EstimatorXpress has now estimated the cost of fitting the additional layer of insulation, so that's the suspended floor finished. Click the Close Workbook button and confirm whether the workbook's complete. Thank you for watching this EstimatorXpress video on estimating a suspended floor.